Now back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
South of the border, down Mexico way. That's where
I'm just thinking of a nice sandy beach and a cold drink and a umbrella in the drink. Sounds good, doesn't it?
Out of the surf.
After the winter we've had, we're talking about a different border, the Canadian border into the United States, and what's called an H-1B visa. This has been in the news quite a bit with the new Trump administration. They want to restrict the number of H-1Bs, and this is important for Vancouver specifically because we have a lot of people here in the tech industry, video gaming industry, film industry. So how does that play out in our market? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, Trump has said that he wants to reduce the number of H-1Bs granted annually from 100,000 to 50,000.
For the whole country?
For the whole country.
That's not very many.
That's not very many for, a country the size of the United States. I think it's important for people to understand that U.S. immigration is mostly family immigration. It's the way people immigrate to Canada.
Okay, so how is it different than Canada?
In Canada, for the last 10 years, the majority of immigration has been economic immigration. So
and that was a target of the Conservative government, to focus on specific people coming into the country.
Liberal too. Liberal too. We had an economic policy, but the Conservatives wanted to see it to be over more like a 60-40 split, right? That we were 60% economic. And I think that the thought process behind that is if we have immigrants that are paying the way, right, that basically are helping the economy, then we can at the same time have immigrants that are coming in for social and family reasons, and then we'll have a balanced immigration program. The United States has a very opposite approach. The United States, despite its Statue of Liberty, right, it focuses mostly on family immigration. So people such as brothers and sisters can be sponsored by family members in the United States once they become citizens, which you can't do in Canada. And it makes the bulk of their program now. 75% of all immigrants that land and become permanent residents in the United States come in under a family class. And so, but one of the avenues that it is open for economic immigration is through, you have to get an H-1B visa, be designated as in a strategic occupation. Mm-hmm. And once you have that designation, you can then apply for permanent residency. So
and then eventually citizenship.
And eventually citizenship.
Because I have friends who have done that route. They're in the entertainment talent industry. Yeah. And so they have a unique skill, I guess, is what they're...
Yeah. So they're with the H-1B, they're on the process. Now, this has already been a very tight process where you hear a lot of Americans that are down there, not Americans, foreign nationals down there that have contacted our office saying, I'm in the United States, I've been here for a long time, I'm working in a skilled job, but I can't get an H-1B or I can't get the permanent residency. Can I come to Canada? This is going to exacerbate that situation. So people in the tech industry, in BC right now, we have 100,000 employees working in the tech industry, which is more than actually in forestry, LNG, everything else. The tech industry is really big. And
another one is film. The film industry is huge too.
So if people in the States can't get a process to permanent residency, can't solidify, you're building your life, you're getting work experience.
And how long is the H-1B valid for? Is it a year, 2 years, 5 years?
Do you know the answer to that?
Because what I'm saying is that you might have somebody coming up to the end of their visa and they want to renew it, and now there's a worry. So I've been in Silicon Valley for X number of years, and what am I going to do? Well, I might move to Vancouver.
Well, and that's exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing people calling, asking about that. And I think it's a big opportunity for the tech companies that are always complaining about a labor shortage to sort of throw it open. And I mean, we're lucky that I think the LMIA process, and Gordon might disagree with this, I think responds to those workers fairly quickly. Right.
Well, I want to point out on the U.S. side of things, the people that are worried here in the U.S. are the tech companies, the science companies who are using the H-1B to bring in
Southern California. It's so massive that Northern California, Silicon Valley. It's so massive. It's basically taken over all of Northern California. You see the same thing we have here in Vancouver with house prices, and it's not foreign nationals buying homes. It's highly paid tech people driving out the middle class. So with the same issues they have. So it's a massive scale down in Silicon Valley. How many people are moving in, how much money they make, all that kind of stuff. So they need more people, right?
Well, and what's driving this, of course, is Trump has said that he wants to promote the employment of American workers. Mm-hmm. He thinks that there's abuse of the H-1B program. During his run-up towards the election, he argued that he would completely kill the program, but that hasn't happened. So what happened this month was just on Friday, there was an announcement by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration about changing the criteria for issuance of H-1B visas. Then on Monday, yesterday, the Border Security people, the Homeland Security, they announced that they're going to have enforcement action against companies that they think are abusing the program. Now, there's a lottery system that's used. Companies put names into the lottery, and there's
So you've got Apple and Google and all of these companies, right?
Yep. But when you read the paper about the details of the program and what they have announced to trim up the program and to make it less opportunistic for companies, it really surprises me, because I think the U.S., both in their immigration program and in their work permit programs, have been lagging behind. Maybe it is time to review these programs.
Well, it's interesting because in Donald Trump's speech to the joint houses, which typically is called the State of the Union, but it wasn't called that. I'm not sure why. He talked and mentioned and highlighted Canada twice. He talked about Trudeau working with them on getting capital for women in business. And then the other one was copying Canada and other countries like Australia for a merit-based immigration system. So kind of what we used to call the point system.
And that's what Rudy was talking about.
So you're moving from family immigration to we need the right people, which is kind of contrary to this H-1B. So if you're allowing
but the problem with the American H-1B program is that they're using rules that were written in the 90s. It's been 20, 25 years since these criteria were put in place. So, for instance, minimum qualification for the H-1B program is they offer a salary of $60,000.
Right. That's not hard to do, yeah.
These positions command salaries of $120,000 in the U.S. So why are you underpaying the foreign workers? And maybe that is driving companies to seek entry under H-1B to pay a lesser salary. I don't know why the salary minimum is still based on 1990s figures. Canada is way ahead of the U.S. in that. I mean, if you want to bring in a skilled worker in Canada, the company has to agree to pay a prevailing wage, and that's set by the government and revised quarterly. So
really?
Yeah. So and then you can just go to the website and see what the prevailing wage is, and that's just the minimum. They want you to pay more than that. On top of that, what they said in the revised criteria for the U.S. H-1B is that they're no longer going to allow it to be used for entry-level computer programmers. So people who are straight out of university or college and going into computer programming, they say that's not specialized enough.
Because there's loads of those people coming out.
Loads of those people anyways.
Yeah.
So if this is the kind of thing that they're looking at as to how they want to trim up the program, well, bless them. Why weren't they looking at that years ago, it seems to me?
Now, NAFTA is 22 years old, is that right?
1980, well, the original free trade agreement was 1988. But North American free trade agreement was
20, I think it's around 22 years. The reason I bring up NAFTA is because you have told me in the past during these shows that certain professions can come and go across the border quite easily under NAFTA. But this whole tech segment of the industry is really, of the economy, I should say, is fairly young and isn't captured under NAFTA.
So some of it is. Computer system analyst is captured. So
there's an example of something written in 1988. The only computing job they put down under the professionals program was computer system analyst. That hasn't been revised.
That's what I do every time I look at my computer.
They really have to do better than that.
But what I'm saying is, if there is a rewrite of NAFTA, and that's being talked about, and they go back and they say, could NAFTA capture more of, if it was rewritten, capture more of these professionals that are in tech?
It could. I just don't think the political climate's there, right? I mean, if he's on a sort of, we don't want foreigners, I don't think there's going to be, I'll be happy if they leave it the way it is. I'm not optimistic that they're going to expand it to sort of open the list of
It's not a bad thing to leave it the way it is, because if there's unemployed Americans in technical industries or professions under NAFTA, they can seek employment in the Canadian labor market and cease to be an unemployment issue in the States.
Well, this is what I was going to ask, is a big part of your work every day is bringing people into Canada who have these sorts of skills. That's right. So is there a shortage? Canada would be similar, I would think, to the available talent pools. Is Canada short of the skills required to run these high-tech businesses? Do we need foreigners?
My clients are telling me 100% they do.
So it would be the same in the United States. There's not enough people
You'd never want to answer that question generally to encompass every occupation in every industry sector. But
in tech,
company to company, there are certainly positions that can't be filled from within Canada, where you're looking for worldwide expertise, whether it comes from the States or whether it comes from Europe. You know, you're looking for skill set.
So so this is part of your workload, is bringing people in, and so we can't fill all of the positions using Canadians. So it's logical the United States would be similar.
Yeah. So you're, I mean, that especially in the graphics industry, I'm finding, you know, that's a special sort of artistic talent, being able to work with the technology, and they can't find those people. I mean, it is very difficult, you know, and that's a booming industry.
And that's why, that's why Service Canada has exempted certain occupations in that area from going through the labor market impact assessment.
So they go to the front of the queue.
They don't go through. Yeah. So what happens is we don't have to advertise. So we still have to go through the process, but we don't have to. We don't have to advertise. Usually, you have to advertise for 4 weeks and show there are no Canadians applying. We don't have to do that anymore for people in the graphics
Proper
industry.
control of foreign workers requires a balance. You have to look at what are the needs of industry in Canada or various sectors, and try and accommodate those needs without threatening the Canadian labor force. And so finding that balance point is important. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle for all the departments and for the companies involved. In the U.S., maybe the balance is out of whack.
So quickly, because we're running a little long in this segment, is this going to be good for Canadian tech arms of these companies or the Vancouver? Or are we going to see more people potentially relocating, you know, a 2-hour flight north to be here in Canada and not in Northern California?
People who aren't able to get H-1B visas in the States are going to look for another employer.
I think what we're seeing, I mean, from Trump is just making noise right now. Like, none of his orders have actually become functional. I mean, if any of this stuff actually passes through Congress and gets enacted, I think we will see, you know, if they reduce the number of H-1B visas, we're going to see people panicking, going, well, I don't want to go back to India. I don't want to go back to China. What's an option? Our office has an office in BC. Can I move there? I think
one of the issues they have is that the Canadian, they don't get paid the same way they do in Silicon Valley.
They don't.
That's what I hear.
Winter and taxes are the native side of things.
When we come back, we're going to switch back across the border to Canada and talk about Canadian immigration levels. The ETA, will touch on that again. Talking about immigration and citizenship law with Gordon Maynard and Rudy Kisher, partners at MKS Law, next on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.